Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today I'll be teaching how to make a cable stitch top. This regal top features the aforementioned cable we love, cap sleeves, and a beautiful scoop neck, which I've really been feeling lately. Speaking of, if you're feeling new and exciting crochet makes, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of crochet tutorials and patterns online with new patterns weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 100 grams of yarn, and that's 250 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you have any plans for Valentine's Day. For us, I think we're going to order food and pig out. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 6 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, treble crochet, and a double treble crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we are all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook, and no matter what size we're making, we're all going to start by making a chain 8. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do our first row, which is a half double crochet row. So we're all going to start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. We're all going to yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a half double. So bring our hook down, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. Let's do the next one. Yarn over, into that following chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. Our row 1 is finished, and we need to get started on our row 2. Now we should have a total of 8 stitches, and our row 2 is going to be another half double crochet row, also ending with 8 stitches. So let's all chain 2. That chain 2 still does not count as a stitch. That's our turning chain. Flip our work and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch for a total of 8. We are back, and our row 2 is all finished. Now we're going to get started on our row 3, or our first cable stitch row. So from where we're at, we're all going to chain 2 and flip our work. Now every cable stitch row is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're about to get started on our row 3, each of our post stitches are going to be worked into row 1. And around the cables we are going to have pillars as well. So our pillars are always going to be a front post treble crochet. We're all going to start with a yarn over of 2. Taking a look at our row 1, we're going to find our first stitch, which is a half double crochet, not counting that chain 2. So this is my first stitch right here. I'm going to bring my hook down underneath that first half double crochet and through the other side, then yarn over, pull through, then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2 until we have 2 loops left. So yarn over, pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now there's our first front post treble crochet. Now getting started on the cable stitch section, what we're going to do is yarn over 3 times, preparing for a front post double treble crochet. So yarn over 1, 2, 3 times now. We're going to skip the first 2 stitches. So right after that front post treble, we're going to skip 1, skip 2, and then underneath that following, we're going to insert our hook underneath the body of that half double crochet through the other side. Then we're all going to yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left again. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 2. Now our first front post double treble crochet is all finished, and for our cable stitch detail, they're going to be worked in sets of 2. So another front post double treble crochet into that following stitch. So yarn over 3 times. Into that next stitch, insert your hook, bring it through the other side, yarn over, pull through. Then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now we have the first 2 stitches for our cable stitch detail finished. Let's do the following 2, which is another set of front post double treble crochets worked into those 2 stitches that we skipped. So yarn over 3 times. Into those 2 stitches that we skipped over, we're going to find the first half double crochet and insert into there. So bring our hook down and through the other side, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then again into that skip stitch. So yarn over 1, 2, 3 times again. Into that next skip stitch, bring our hook down and underneath, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then we're going to close off our cable stitch detail with 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2 stitches. So to do that again, we're going to yarn over twice. There's 1, there's 2. Into that following stitch, or that third to last half double crochet from our row 1, we're going to bring our hook down, underneath the body of that half double, pull through 2, 2, 2, and then another front post treble crochet into that following stitch. So yarn over. Into that second to last stitch, insert, pull through 2, 2, 2, and then to close off every cable stitch row, we're going to close it off with a front post treble crochet, but combined with a half double crochet to secure it down. So yarn over twice per usual. This is going to be our pillar, like how we started this row off with. And underneath that last half double crochet from our row 1, we're going to bring our hook down, insert, and through the other side, pull through, and we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 2 loops left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. When we have those 2 loops, we're going to yarn over and then insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row. So into there, we're going to yarn over, pull through, and when we have those 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. And that is our row 3 all finished up. Now every even number row is going to be a half double crochet row. So all we're going to do after this is chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, and we should all have a total of 8 stitches. So we are back, and we have just finished up our first 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Now we're going to get started on our row 5, or our second cable stitch row, so chain 2 and flip our work. Now every cable stitch row is always going to start and end with our front post treble crochet, or our pillar is what we're going to call them for video's sake. So just like before, we're going to yarn over twice. Like I said, every cable stitch row is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're working on row 5, we're going to be inserting our hook into row 3, so our previous cable stitch. We're going to bring our hook down and find that first stitch from our previous row, which is this front post treble crochet. We're going to insert, and just like before, pull through, yarn over, and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And that is our front post treble crochet. Now getting started on our row 5, we're going to start with a set of 2 front post treble crochets into the first 2 stitches. So yarn over twice, into that following stitch, insert, pull through, and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook, just like before, and we have 1 more left to do. So yarn over twice. Into that following stitch from our previous cable stitch row, pull through 2, 2, 2. Now right after our first 3 stitches, we're going to skip the following 2 stitches, and then into the 2 right after that, 1 front post double treble crochet into each. So yarn over 3 times. We're now going to skip 1, skip 2, and into that following, or the third to last stitch from our previous cable row, we're going to insert, pull through, and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. There's our first front post treble. We have 1 more left to do. To finish off this set of 2, so yarn over 3 times, Into that following stitch, bring your hook underneath through the other side. We're all going to yarn over, pull through 2, 2, 2, and 2. And now that we have that, we're now going to be working into those 2 stitches that we skipped over, but now working in through that window that we just made for ourselves. So getting this started, we're all going to yarn over 3 times because it's going to be a set of 2 front post double treble crochets into each. Go ahead and hang on to your working yarn because it can very easily fall off. And what we're going to do from here is pull our work down towards us, finding those 2 skip stitches. So here are mine. Here's 1, here's 2. Into that first skip stitch, we're going to bring our hook underneath. It may feel a little awkward, but go ahead and find it. Bring your hook underneath and through the other side. Pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, 2, 2, 2. For our first front post double treble crochet, that's what our crossover should look like. And we have 1 more left to do. So again, yarn over 3 times. Bring our work down, finding that skipped stitch. Bring your hook underneath that stitch through the other side. Pull through, and then pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And this is our crossover and the entire cable for our row 5. We just need to close off the row with a front post treble crochet combined with a half double. So to do that, it's going to be done exactly the same way as our row 3, so yarn over twice. We're going to find that last treble stitch from our previous cable stitch row, bring your hook underneath through the other side, yarn over, pull through. From here, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 2 loops left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and when we have those 2 loops, we're all going to yarn over, insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. And now our row 5 is all finished. Now, like I said, every even number row is going to be a half double crochet row. So chain 2, flip your work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, and we should all have a total of 8 stitches. We are back, and we should all have our first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows now finished, and it's going to be a repeat of rows 3 through 6. So let's just get started on the following row, just to remind you how it's done. So let's all chain 2 and flip our work. So getting started on our row 7, it's always going to start off with a front post treble crochet worked into our previous cable stitch row. So yarn over twice, bring your hook down, finding that treble crochet from our previous cable stitch row, bring your hook through the other side, pull through 2, 2, and 2. And since this is our row 7, it's going to be a repeat of our row 3. So just as a really quick refresher, we're all going to start with a set of 2 front post double treble crochets. So yarn over 1, 2, 3 times. We're going to skip the first 2 stitches, and then underneath the following, bring your hook underneath, pull through 2, 2, 2, 2, and then underneath that following stitch as well, because remember the cable stitches are worked in sets of 2, pull through 2, 2, 2, 2, and just like that, the first few stitches of our row 7 are all finished up. Like I said, it's going to be a repeat of rows 3 through 6. So all we're going to do from here is repeat rows 3 through 6 until we get the height of the front panel that we want. So placing this first row that we made where we want the bottom of the top to be, so you can place this cropped or full length. And we're going to continue on with these rows until this reaches the depth of the neckline that we want. So I want mine to be full length. I'm going to continue to do this until mine reaches about mid-chest. But if you would like for this to cover more, do more rows, or if you'd like to show a little bit more, do fewer rows. Either way, I will meet you back right after a cable stitch row. I am back. My cable stitch detail is all finished. I have a total of 41 rows. My length is just about 13.5 inches or 35 centimeters. And now we're going to single crochet along the edge of our piece so we can get started on our side panel. So we should have all ended right after a cable stitch row. What we're going to do from here is chain 1 and flip our work, and all we're going to do is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So finding our first side row, this is mine right here. We may need to tug our work apart a little bit, but just find that first side row and insert with 1 single crochet. This is my following side row, insert in through there with 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and there's 2. Let's do this again. Into our following side row, in through that gap, insert with 1, into that following side row, insert with that gap with 2 single crochets. And we're going to continue this until we reach the end of the row. So now that our single crochet row is all finished up, we're going to get started on our following row, which is going to be a back loop slip stitch row. So since we're at the end, let's all do a chain up of 1 and flip our work. So let's all start by finding our first stitch's back loop and insert into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us. Then we're going to gently yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. That is our first back loop slip stitch. Let's do another one. Into that next stitch's back loop, insert, yarn over, pull through everything, and that's it. Continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, remembering not to tug too tightly, otherwise the following stitch can be a little too tight to work into. So we have made our way all the way down with our back loop slip stitch row. What we're going to do from here is our back loop half double crochet row. So we're now going to chain 2 and flip our work. And we're now going to put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, find that last stitch from our previous row and insert only into that back loop, pull through all 3. Let's do that again. Yarn over, into that next stitch's back loop, insert, pull through all 3, and that's it. Continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. At the end of the row, we're all going to chain 1, flip our work, and then do the same back loop slip stitch row that we just finished together. And then we're going to alternate between a back loop half double and back loop slip stitch row until the side panel that we have can stretch, because this piece is going to have some stretch to it, over to mid collarbone. And then I will meet you back right after a back loop slip stitch row so we can get started on the shoulder portion together right after that. So we are back. I have a total of 12 rows for my side panel. This width is just about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters unstretched. And what we're going to do from here is make a chain that reaches all the way up to the top of our shoulder, making sure that we're placing this last row right at the depth that we want for this neckline to be. So from here, I needed a total of just about 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. So I made a chain of 23. Now that we have our chain, we are going to continue on with our row sequence. Our following row is going to be a half double crochet row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. We're all going to yarn over, insert our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook with a half double crochet. And then from here, put 1 half double crochet into every chain. Once when we reach the body portion, we're going to continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch to keep up with the ribbing. And then right after that, and then at the end of the row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Now we're going to continue on with those 2 rows, so a back loop half double crochet row and a back loop slip stitch row, both with no increases and no decreases, until the shoulder portion that we have can stretch over to the corner of our underarm. And I will meet you back right after a half double crochet row so we can get started on the underarm portion right after that. I am back and my shoulder portion is all finished. I now have a total of 15 rows. This width is 3 inches or 8 centimeters unstretched, or my total width is 5 inches or 13 centimeters still unstretched. Now from here, we're all going to get started on our underarm together. So first things first, we're all going to need to insert our stitch marker into the stitch that we have that's nearest to the corner of our underarm. I inserted my stitch marker into the 24th stitch from the top, and that's just about 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. Now from here, since we all should have ended along the bottom, we're going to be putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, leaving 2 stitches right before our stitch marker. We've made our way down with our back loop slip stitch rows. We should have left 1, 2 stitches left, and now we're going to do a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches. So insert your hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, also into that next back loop, which is the stitch right before stitch marker. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops, and that is our decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches. Now to get started on the following row, which is a back loop half double crochet row, chain 2 and flip our work. And now we're going to need to start this row off with a decrease as well. So yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch from our previous row's back loop, pull through into that following stitch's back loop, pull through, and we should have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on our hook. So yarn over, pull through all 4, and that's it. Put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. Then from here we're going to continue to repeat these 2 rows. So a back loop slip stitch row that ends on a decrease of 2, and then a back loop half double crochet row that starts with a decrease of 2 until we have a side panel that can reach all the way over to mid underarm, making sure that we all end right after a half double crochet row. When we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back so we can get started on the other side. We are back, and I have just finished up the first side of my front panel. I have a total of 19 rows. My width for the side panel is 4 inches or 10 centimeters unstretched, or my total width that I have is 6 inches or 15 centimeters. Now from here we're going to be doing almost the same exact thing as this side, but on the other side, and it's going to be just a little bit different because the ribbing that we have isn't reversible. But this first neckline portion is going to be the same. So what we're going to do is make sure that our cable stitch is faced up towards us, and we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of our cable stitch detail. And then we're going to do our single crochet row, back loop slip stitch, back loop half double crochet row for the same amount of rows that we have for this neckline portion. And once we have that finished up, I will meet you back right after our slip stitch row. We will be ending along the bottom, but I will show you guys how we're going to do our shoulder portion from there. Alrighty, so we are back and we have just finished up the second side panel for the other side that we have. Now we should have all ended along the bottom, so we're going to need to take out our hook, but we don't have to do a chain up of 1 and cut. I'm just going to leave some slack, take out my hook, and then I'm going to insert my hook into this top corner stitch of my piece. Now from here, what we're going to do is make a chain for the same amount of chains that we made on this side. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a chain 23. So over here, I'm going to make a chain 23 and then cut. And now that I have made my chain and did a chain up of 1 and cut, we're now going to reinsert our same hook into the bottom of our piece, so where my slack loop is. And then from here, we're going to continue on with the same rows. So our following row should be a back loop half double crochet. I'm going to put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, 1 half double crochet into every chain, chain 1, flip our work, and then do a back loop slip stitch row. The amount of rows that we have for this shoulder portion should be the same amount of rows that we had for the first shoulder portion, and we're going to continue to repeat it until we have the same amount of rows. Once we do, we will be ending along the top right after back loop half double crochet row. After that last shoulder row, go ahead and do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back so we can get started on the underarm. We should have the same amount of rows as the first shoulder portion, so for me it was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to get started on our underarm. So after our last shoulder row, we did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then we inserted our stitch marker into the same amount of stitches that we inserted it into for the other side. So for those of you that have my numbers, a total of 24 stitches from the top. And now we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that's nearest to our stitch marker, working down towards the bottom. So let's flip our work over so we're looking at the back. So we're all going to find that next available stitch that's right next to our stitch marker, working down towards the bottom, and we're going to insert our hook into that back loop. Then insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure, and we're going to start with a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches since we're along the top. And we're going to start by inserting our hook into that same stitch that our chain 1 is coming out of, so insert into that back loop, pull through, and into that following back loop as well. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3 of those loops, and that is our decrease. From here, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2, so we can do that decrease together as well. So we have finished up our back loop slip stitch row and made our way back up with our back loop half double crochet row, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now into the last 2 stitches, we're going to do a decrease of 2 back loop half doubles. So yarn over, into that second to last stitch's back loop, pull through, also into that last stitch's back loop, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4, and then repeat our 2 previous rows. So from here, just chain 1, flip our work, start our following row off with a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches, and then 1 back loop slip into every stitch, and then a back loop half double crochet row that ends on a decrease of 2. We're going to continue to repeat these 2 rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows as the other underarm portion that we have, making sure that we all end on a half double crochet row again, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so I am back and the entirety of my front panel is finished. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut right after my last row, and my total width is now 10.5 inches or 27 centimeters unstretched. And now we're going to get started on the back panel. So getting started on the back panel, what we're going to do is start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our last underarm row. Now you can count either side because they should be the same amount of stitches. I have a total of 56 stitches, so I made a chain of 56, and I actually already have the first underarm portion for my back panel finished, so I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. So now that we have our chain, we're going to get started on our first half double crochet row. So we're all going to start by blocking out that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain, and we're all going to yarn over. And inserting our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, we're going to insert with our first half double crochet. And from here, put 1 half double crochet into every chain, leaving the last one. Now we should all have 1 chain left. Into that last chain, we're going to do an increase of 2 half double crochets because for the other underarm portion, we did a decrease of 2. So insert with 1 half double, and then into that same last chain, a second half double crochet. And now we're going to need to increase into our slip stitch row as well. So we're all going to start with a chain 2. That first chain is going to count as a stitch. That second chain is going to count as our turning chain and flip our work. And we're all going to start by inserting our hook into that second chain from our hook's back loop. So bring your hook down into that second chain's back loop. We're going to yarn over and gently pull through everything on our hook. So pull through 1, pull through 2. That is our first back loop slip stitch. Let's do this again. Into our following stitch, insert into that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. Again, into that next stitch's back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. Continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch until we reach the end of the row. So we are back and our row 2 is all finished up. Now we're going to be alternating between a back loop half double and back loop slip stitch row. So just to get started on our row 3 or our following half double crochet row, chain 2 and flip our work, remembering that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch. And we're going to yarn over and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one. We've made our way down. We should all have 1 stitch left, and into that last stitch we're going to do an increase of 2 back loop half doubles. So yarn over. Insert your hook into that last stitch's back loop with 1, and then into that same stitch's back loop with a second half double crochet. And now from here we're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we now have an underarm portion that can stretch from mid underarm over to the base of our neck. Now the height of this portion doesn't need to reach the base of our neck. We just want the last row of this section to align with the side of the base of our neck, and then I will meet you back right after a back loop half double crochet row. I am back. The underarm portion of my back panel is all finished. I have a total of 15 rows, that's 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters unstretched. My increase height, so the longer side, is 16 inches or 41 centimeters. And now from here, we're going to make a chain that reaches all the way up to the top of our shoulder. Now I need a total of 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I made a chain 13. Now my total height is 19 inches or 48 centimeters. And now we're going to continue on with our back loop half double and back loop slip stitch row, working our way across from one side of the base of our neck, across our back to the other side of the base of our neck. So once we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1, and into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch, and that's it. We're going to put 1 slip stitch into every chain. Once we reach the body portion, we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of that row, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch with no increases and no decreases. We're going to continue to repeat these 2 rows until we reach across to the other side of the base of our neck, and I'll meet you back right after a back loop half double crochet row. So I am back, and the width of my back panel is all finished. Now I have a total of 32 rows. My total width is 7 inches or 18 centimeters unstretched. And now from here we're going to get started on the underarm. So first things first, we're all going to need to insert our stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made that led up to our shoulder. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a chain 13. So along this side, I inserted my stitch marker into the 13th stitch. Now, since we all should have ended along the bottom, we're going to make our way all the way up, putting one back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last two so we can do a decrease together. So now that we've made our way down, we should all have 1, 2 stitches right before our stitch marker. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, and then into that last back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4 of those loops, and that is our decrease. And we're going to need to do a decrease into our slip stitch row as well, because we did an increase on the other underarm portion. And now from here, continue to repeat these 2 rows. So a back loop half double crochet row that ends on a decrease of 2, and then a back loop slip stitch row that starts with a decrease of 2, until we have the same amount of underarm rows as the back panel. When we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. So I am back, and the entirety of my back panel is finished. I have a total of 47 rows. My width is just about 10.5 inches or 27 centimeters unstretched. And now we're going to single crochet across the tops of our pieces to make it easier to seam. So let's all start by single crocheting across the top of our front panel. So what we're going to do is insert our hook into this top corner stitch of our shoulder strap. We are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And what we're going to do from here is 2 single crochets into every side half double and 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row. So let's just do the first side row. Everyone's side row for the front panel should be a side half double. So insert your hook in through that top loop. And if you're like me, you have some tail ends. There we go. Go ahead and place them over your hook so you don't need to weave them in later. And we're going to do 1 single crochet. And then into that same top loop for the side half double crochet row, insert again with a second single crochet. And now for our side slip stitch row, we're just going to find that top loop, insert our hook, and then we're going to single crochet once. And since I just have 1 more side row left to do, let's do that one together. My following side row is a side half double, so insert in through that top loop with 1 single crochet, and then into that same top loop with a second single crochet. And that's it. From here, I'm going to do a chain up of 1 and cut. But if you have more side rows, continue on with this until you don't have any more side rows left to work into. When you don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. We have just finished up single crocheting across the top of our front panel. So now let's do the back panel, which is going to be the same thing. We're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of the front panel, insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and we're just going to do the first 2 side rows together. Our first side row over here should be a side slip stitch row, so insert your hook in through there with 1 single crochet. And then into that following side row, which should be a side half double, we're going to insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and there's 2. And from here, we're going to continue this until we don't have any more side rows left. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alrighty, so we are back. We have just finished up single crocheting across the tops of both our front and back panel. And now we're going to seam the shoulders together. So we're all going to start by flipping our work wrong side out, meaning the ribbing that we have for the back panel is faced up towards us, but all the detail that we have for the front panel is face down. And then we're going to be inserting our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now we're just going to single crochet both panels together. So let's all start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert your hook, next stitch into the back panel, insert your hook, and single crochet. And we're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. So now that our shoulders are all seamed up, the next thing we're going to do is seam our sides. So first things first, we're going to flip our work right side out now, meaning the cable is faced up towards us, and then we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Next, we are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam together. So we're all going to start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop, first stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop, and then yarn over, gently pull through all 3 loops. Just like that, let's do that again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop, next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything on our hook, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. So we are back. We have just finished up seaming up everything, and now we're going to get started on our sleeve. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, we're going to do a single crochet row working clockwise or to the left. And then we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that's nearest to our side seam. And next we're going to do a single crochet row. So what we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side half double, 1 single crochet into every side slip, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch. So let's just do the first few rows together. Now everyone's first side row should be a side half double crochet row. So all we're going to do is find that top loop, insert your hook, and if you have some tail ends like me, just place that over your hook so we don't need to weave them in later. And insert with 1 single, and then into that same top loop within our half double crochet row, a second single crochet. And then into our side slip stitch row, insert into that top loop with 1 single crochet. And that's it. We're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way around with our single crochet row. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I will meet you back right after we slip stitch into that chain space. So our first single crochet row is all finished up, and we're all going to get started on our row 2. So right after we have slip stitched into that chain space, what we're going to do is chain 1. And for everyone, no matter what size we're making, we're all going to start with 10 single crochets, making sure that we're still working clockwise or to the left. So just find that first stitch, insert with 1 single crochet, and I will meet you back when we all have a total of 10. So now that we all have our 10 single crochets, into the 2 stitches right after that, we're going to do a decrease. So into that next stitch, pull through, into that following stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, that's our decrease of 2. And from here, put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 12 stitches. And that is for every size, and we're leaving 12 for the 10 single crochets that we need to close off the row with, and for the decrease. So we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our half double crochets, and we have left 12 stitches. So what we're going to do next is do another decrease into the following 2. So into that next stitch, pull through, into that next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and then right after that decrease, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. So after this, we should have a total of 10 single crochets, and then slip stitch into that chain space. So our row 2 is all finished. Now for the sleeve, we are also going to be alternating between a back loop half double, given the back loop half doubles do start with single crochets, and then a back loop slip stitch row as well. So now we're going to do our back loop slip row. So right after we slip stitch into that chain space, all we're going to do is chain 1. Now we are going to flip our work, and we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So none of our back loop slip stitch rows will have any increases or decreases. So we're going to flip our work, and then find that first available stitch, insert into that back loop, yarn over, gently pull through everything, and that's it. Continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and then I will meet you back at the end of the row. So we're back, and our back loop slip stitch row is all finished up. Now from here, we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows, but now our half double crochet row is going to be within the back loops. So just to get that row started, right after we slip stitched into that chain space, did a chain up of 1 and flipped our work, we're going to put 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch for 10 stitches. So I have my 10 back loop single crochets, and just to do the decrease together, insert into that following stitch's back loop, pull through, into that following stitch's back loop, pull through all 3, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch while making sure to close off the row with a decrease of 2 back loop single crochets and then 10 back loop single crochets. Our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row, so put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, then continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we get a cap sleeve the length that we'd like. I'll meet you back right after a back loop half double crochet row. So we are back. I have just finished up both of my sleeves actually, since they are done the same way, and I actually have a total of 16 rows. Now from here, I did do a chain up 1 and cut, and now we're going to get started on the collar. So first thing we're going to do is flip our work over, making sure that our work is still flipped right side out, and then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the stitches that we have along the back of our neckline. We are all going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now we're going to do a single crochet row. So just into that first stitch, insert with 1 single crochet, into that following with 1 single crochet. So pretty simple. Continue on with our single crochets, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. Once we reach the front panel's neckline, we do have some side rows to work into, but that's going to be done pretty much the same way as all of our other side rows. So 2 single crochets into every side half double, 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, and continue our single crochet row, making our way all the way around, and then slip stitch into that chain space. So my single crochet row is all finished up, and now we're going to do our collar. So from where we're at, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our collar to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 5. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do a slip stitch row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch, remembering not to tug too tightly, otherwise the falling row can still be too tight to work into, and just put 1 slip stitch into every chain. And now that we're at the base, we're going to slip stitch it into the base. So find that next available stitch, insert it in through there with a slip stitch, and now our row 1 is complete. Getting started on our row 2, we're going to work our way up to the following row by slip stitching into that next available stitch into the base. None of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch, and flip our work. And now just do back loop slip stitches. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything, and continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Now at the end of our row 2, kind of like where I'm at right here, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and then I'll meet you back at the base. And now that we're at the base, we're just going to slip stitch it into there together once more. So just like before, find that next stitch into the base, slip stitch it into there. And now our row 3 is closed up. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows with no increases and no decreases until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we've made our way all the way around, I will meet you back to seam everything together. So we have just made our way all the way around with our collar, so our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it all together. And the seam is going to be done the exact same way as our side seams, so an outside loop slip stitch seam. So let's make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up, and we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, yarn over, pull through everything. And now from here, since we already know how to do this, let's just do the first one. We're all going to insert our hook into that first available stitch's front loop within the front panel, and then into that next stitch's back loop within the back panel, and then yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. And we're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So I'm back. We have just finished up seaming our collar, and we are all done. Last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch y'all in the next one. Bye.